All right, before we start a really fun weekend of baseball, let's answer some viewer responses.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But the best way to get a hold of me, and I'm going to prove it by answering your responses, is right here on the YouTube page. And boy, oh boy, if it was a really nice response I got from a lot of people with my birthday, and now I'm just another schmuck. But we got a couple people who wrote some really nice things for my birthday, and I threw out the trivia question: which Hall of Famers were also born on May 14th? Well, Big John 08865, who comments a lot on here, brought up the late, great Roy Doc Holliday was indeed born on May 14th. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Now, Seattle Tall Guy wrote, the answer to about the three Hall of Famers who share your birthday are Roy Halladay, Early Combs, and Ed Walsh. Now, you got two out of the three, except Ed Walsh was born on May 19th, not on May 14th. Ed Walsh was the great Chicago White Sox ace from 1904 to 1916 and was not on the team when they won the World Series in 1917. He was playing for the Boston Braves, and then was nowhere to be found when the 1919 White Sox were doing what they do, and now looks like it's all fine. They can go to the Hall of Fame. But nope, you got that one wrong. Earl Combs and Roy Halladay are two of them. However, the other one is, drumroll please, Tony Perez. Tony Perez is the other one. I've met Tony Perez. I got Tony Perez's autograph. There's a photo of me with Tony Perez. Seemed like a nice enough man. But then again, we were at a function where there was a lot of Hall of Famers and people there, and I said hello to him, so he was probably going to be friendly no matter what. So, that's that was the answer to that trivia question. So right there. Let's get to some of the responses. I got a whole bunch of responses just in general, and also regarding the episode about the possible reinstatement or the reinstatement of Pete Rose and of Joe Jackson. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to the Hall of Fame. There's still a lot of people mad at Pete Rose. There's still a lot of people who know that he was not a very good guy. There's a lot of not very good people in the Hall of Fame. Tom Yawkey's in the Hall of Fame. Bobby Cox is in the Hall of Fame. Read about Bobby Cox. He's a miserable human being. But we'll get to some of that stuff in the second segment of the show. Let's just go to some of the other things that were brought up in this first segment. Pigskin Petey, who has been listening to the show, we had a fun little back and forth there. Good listener, smart guy. Would the Rockies lose a 3-game series to a AAA team right now? Yeah, I think they would. I don't think there's much of a difference between a AAA club and the Colorado Rockies right now anyway. I mean, take a look at some of the players. The player who leads the I'll tell you what I should make my trivia question be, is who currently leads the Rockies in, according to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth. It's a big poll right now. If you can get that, the answer, and you may not even know who it is. It's Jake Bird. Jake Bird leads the Rockies in WAR at this current moment. Do any of you know who Jake Bird is? Jake Bird is a pitcher for the Colorado Rockies. He's a relief pitcher. He's thrown 25 in the third innings. and he actually has pitched pretty well. He struck out 33 batters in 25 and a third innings, has a good ERA of 1.78. Jake Bird is your WAR leader for the Colorado Rockies. Jake Bird is also 29 years old and is a good relief pitcher on a team that could very well lose 120 ball games. Jake Bird, who has been pitching for the last 4 years for the Colorado Rockies, has been a mediocre reliever who's pitched more games in Coors Field than not, and there you go. I think there's a good enough chance that I'll be pitching for the Rockies than Jake Bird will be if he continues to be a solid reliever, because they don't have a need for a solid reliever right now. And if they could get anything, and did I mention anything in the trade market for him, there you go. But you look at the rest of the team, I mean, their starting pitching is Chase Dollander, their star minor leaguer, had pitched well in his last game and lowered his ERA to 6.88. Hunter Goodman had a good game recently, but the rest of the team is probably, if they were all sent to AAA, yeah, they would probably would. They probably would. When we talked about the firing of the managers, Jeff Cohen, who was an everyday Sully listener, says, "How about getting better players instead of firing managers?" Yeah, I understand the sentiment behind that. I get it. But it's not that easy now, is it? It's not like you can just, cut your whole team. It's not like you can just, pull the ripcord like that. And sometimes you have to at least demonstrate that you understand that there is a problem here, that this is not working. And I mean, call me crazy, but if you're drafting players and bringing them up through their farm system and they make it to the major leagues, they must have had some talent. There must have been some ability. And you see managers get more out of less. And maybe for some of these teams, they're hoping that just a change of scenery, assigned to the players that two things: A, this is not acceptable, and B, everyone is, everyone's on guard. But yeah, it's not like, oh, well, why don't we look at the waiver wire and, oh my God, look at that, Shohei Ohtani is available. He was available a couple years ago. It cost some money. Yeah, the point I'm sure you're making there, Jeff Cohen, is, Danny Montgomery, the scouting director, Bill Schmidt, the general manager, Chris Forbes, the farm director of the Colorado Rockies. Do we, at some point, you have to hold them accountable. At some point, you have to say, you put this team together. And Bud Black has had some success. Granted, he's not exactly Earl Weaver, but he's been able to, manage teams to the postseason before, or at least close to it with San Diego, and 2 back-to-back years in Colorado. And you went grocery shopping. And these are the groceries that you brought back. And yeah, it's it's tough to say that you're firing the manager. It's not saying it's all their fault, but it's like they're clearly not part of the solution. But for Ben Cherington, who's been there for a while, for John Baker, who's been Cherington's been at Pittsburgh for a while, and John Baker, these are who's currently the farm director. They have Paul Skeens, who is a Cy Young caliber talent. Congratulations, you've picked number 1 overall, and you didn't whiff on that. And the Pirates have whiffed with a number 1 overall pick before. And who knows, out of Henry Davis, who was a number 1 overall pick in 2021, and so far has been he's not been a major leaguer. Not by, maybe he's good defensively. I don't know enough about him, but I know as a hitter, he has 0 value. His career slashing over 113 games, which is roughly a full season. If you're a catcher, he's slashing 186, 276, and a slugging of 298. He has 9 career home runs, and his WAR is negative 2.1. So if you just get a regular run-of-the-mill backup catcher, they'll be better than number 1 overall pick Henry Davis. That's on the farm director. That's on the scouting department. You have to start developing players. By the way, just out of curiosity, I mean, Henry Davis could still turn things around. But, Jack Leiter was on that draft. Colton Cowser was in that draft. Sal Frelick was on that draft. I mean, Jackson Merrill was in that draft. The 27th pick, the Padres got an all-star. And the number 1 pick, the Pirates have someone who could barely stay in the major leagues. So there you go. But when we come back, we are going to talk a little bit about the Pete Rose situation and, well, more specifically, your responses to my show about it. All right, let's hear from our good friends over at Gametime. Have you ever decided to buy last minute tickets to a ball game? Say, hey, who's playing today? Oh, that's a good matchup. You know what? I'm going to go down there. I'm going to drive down the 110 and check out the Dodger game there. And, you realize that you want to be there. Well, that's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. And with the big money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, those foam wear number 1 fingers. You can get yourself a plastic nacho bowl in the helmet. Or maybe you can invite a friend to come over to share that nacho bowl in the helmet. Gametime makes it all possible because Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guaranteed that takes the worrying out of buying. Now, Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB. Make it easy to browse the app for upcoming games like the upcoming Dodger Angel rivalry series that's coming up. And my student, D, who I talk about all the time, he's going to the game, and I'm thrilled for D. You can sit next to D and hear him do his play-by-play, and you get the seat view in the app before you buy, and so you know exactly where you're going to be. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKONMLB for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets. They're the lowest prices. And do you know what they are? I'll tell you exactly what they are. They're guaranteed. I was expecting lots of responses to the Pete Rose show. He's a polarizing figure. And I've done several shows about him over the years. And I've had some people agree with what I'm saying. I've had some people accuse me of, because I grew up a big Red Sox fan, that I was bitter that he was the MVP of the World Series in 1975. I was 3 years old, and I've seen my team win the World Series several times since then. So that has nothing to do with that. And then I've had some people agree that that who don't want to see him in at any point. Let's see what some of the people here. There was plus 790 wrote a big long thing. He said it was a lifetime ban, and now it's over. It's up to the voters. Now, plus 790 wrote a long thing where he broke down. He doesn't think that Pete Rose is a inner circle Hall of Famer, and bringing up the fact, comparing him to this player or that player. I have to tell you, I don't care about inner circle, outer circle. If you're in the Hall of Fame, you're in the Hall of Fame. Luis Aparicio is in the Hall of Fame. Eddie Murray is in the Hall of Fame, and Carlton Fisk is in the Hall of Fame, and Willie Mays is in the Hall of Fame. There's no you're an exclusive Hall of Famer, you are an ultra Hall of Famer. I don't even like saying you're a first ballot Hall of Famer, because Joe DiMaggio wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. You're a Hall of Famer. We're going to be celebrating Dave Parker and Dick Allen going to the Hall of Fame this year, along with CC Sabathia, along with Ichiro Suzuki. With all the people there, it's not going to say, oh, you're this kind of Hall of Famer, you're not that kind of Hall of Famer. Pete Rose had a Hall of Fame career. That's all I care about. And he won a couple of things here. Part of me wishes you can have guys like Bonds or Rose in Cooperstown and tell the whitewashed truth on the plaque. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with mentioning the suspension on the plaque. That's part of the history of the game. And of course, Plus 790 brought up the fact that he is a pretty horrible person. Beyond the betting issues, he's admitted the horrible, horrible admissions of what was happening with girls who he said, I thought they were 16. You think, unless you were asking a girl out to the prom and you're in high school, that sentence doesn't get you at anything. And yeah, it's one of the biggest reasons why I am not enthusiastic about what looks like will inevitably happen. There's Aloha Uehara says of the next 2 to 3 draft classes, I guess he means the Hall of Fame election. It should be just a rogues gallery dudes. Do you know what? I'm 100% in on this. If you're gonna have Rose be brought in, and then you're also gonna, I would also just come. And if you're gonna bring in Shoeless Joe, okay, if you are gonna do that, if you're gonna say, all right, they broke the rules, but now they're dead, and they can no longer break the rules, and there you go. At that point, that's when I say, okay, now let's also at this moment bring in Bonds, bring in Clemens, bring in Manny Ramirez, bring in Gary Sheffield, bring in Mark McGwire, bring in Sammy Sosa, bring in Rafael Palmeiro. These are all players who had Hall of Fame caliber careers, and bring in Curt Schilling, who is, again, a bit of a fink, but had a Hall of Fame career. There are finks in the Hall of Fame. There are, as I mentioned before. So I get what you're saying, Aloha Uehara. Let's just get them all in at once, and just let's pull the ripcord on that. And he's Aloha Uehara. Has said that, or was it O's fan? I can't remember. Oh yes, he said, I also want these guys in so we can stop having this dumb conversation. I'm ready for new dumb conversations. Exactly. So just put them all in at once. Pull the Band-Aid. And maybe their punishment is this. Maybe the PED guys, their punishment is this. That they don't get to make a speech. But here's the deal. We know Pudge Rodriguez did PEDs. We know David Ortiz did. And Jeff Bagwell, I mean, he had as many positive tests as Barry Bonds. Skinny kid with bad power, becomes friends with Ken Caminiti. And I think Jeff Bagwell belongs in the Hall of Fame, as does Pudge Rodriguez, as does David Ortiz, as does Bonds, as does A-Rod, as does Sammy Sosa. Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire saved the game. Rafael Palmeiro had a great career. Obvious juicer, did juice. Clemens, all of them. So that to me is, at some point, they're all going to be in. But this was Johnny Barstow 8950 said, if Pete Rose can't be in the Hall of Fame for gambling, then Barry Bonds can't get in for steroid. That's crystal clear. Well, okay. Well, first of all, Barry Bonds isn't in the Hall of Fame for steroids. Even though, as I pointed out, there are users who are in the Hall of Fame right now. And I don't know what this says about me. I don't equate PED use with gambling. I don't. They're two different things. I think they're apples and oranges. And I would make the strange case that I'd rather have a juicer than a gambler. I would rather have someone using PEDs to stay healthy and improve their game than have you wonder if they're playing it on the level. Now it's a different level playing field, and what I do not want, and I've said this over, I do not want the Wild West of what we had in the late 80s through the 1990s, through the early 2000s, where there was zero accountability and zero supervision, and people could do whatever they want to their bodies. And there was a certain pressure, especially if you were a young player trying to just stay in the major leagues, to pump God knows what into your body from really, really disreputable sources. And in order to keep your job. And I don't want that. But what I also don't want is, are you not pitching your best pitcher today because you have a lot of money on tomorrow's game? At least the juicers were always trying to win. Some of you may not agree with me on that, and I don't care. I believe I'm right on that. And that is hopefully the beginning of the end, as we said, of the dumb conversations, because I can't wait to have new dumb conversations. Well, let me tell you something. If there's one thing that is completely unpredictable right now, it is the NBA playoffs. We all knew the Cavaliers would be out at this point, right? We all knew that the first team out of the West to make it to the conference finals would be the freaking Timberwolves. Of course, we all did that. We all knew that the Celtics would be fighting for their life against the New York Knicks. Of course we did. Of course we did, because that's how completely bananas the NBA playoffs are right now. But right now, FanDuel makes it really easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win. So, what's going to happen with the Celtics? Are they going to put together a brand new lineup as they try to stay alive against the New York Knickerbockers? And will we see the Indiana Pacers and the Minnesota Timberwolves continue this great run that they're having? So let me just tell you something. I don't know, and neither do you. But what would you like if you could combine live prop bets mid-game based on how action unfolds? If you got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with same-game parlays? And how could a 200 bonus in bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? Now, let me tell you something. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hey, thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. Now, for your second listen, stay right here on the feed and check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long, get local analysis at a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB or YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Now, this is a big, fun weekend of the year. It's the rivalry weekend. We get to see the Dodgers and the Angels, the don't call them Sacramento A's, go to San Francisco, and the legendary rivalry known as the Padres and the Mariners. But the most interesting matchup is going to be the Subway Series between the Yankees and the Mets. And we have a special guest on the show here today. She was absolutely the most frequent guest I had on the old Sully Baseball podcast, and the co-creator of Subway Squawkers. And it's been a minute since she's been on, and I figured now's as good a time as any to have on for the final segment. Old friend of the Sully Baseball podcast and friend of Locked On MLB, it's Lisa Swan of Subway Squawkers. Welcome back. It's been a while.
Yes, it has, and I have a lot to say. I'm so glad to get to talk to you on this, and even with the Knicks in the playoffs and the fact that they can beat the Celtics tomorrow, it's still this is the biggest story in New York as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, well, I'm gonna let that one slide a little bit, and just I have a feeling after tomorrow I'm just gonna be rewinding my 2024 highlight reels of the Celtics.
Yes.
And you know what?
Yeah, well, fair point.
I will say that I think a Knicks championship. This is not going to be Knicks talk. I think a Knicks championship would be the single biggest New York sports event probably since the Yankees winning in '96, because the Knicks are the unifying team of New York. And at least when I lived in New York for 15 years, and I was there during the Patrick Ewing years, there weren't a lot of Net fans. You had Yankee and Met fans. You had Giant and Jet fans. You had Islander, Ranger, and Devil fans. But everyone seemed to be a Knicks fan. And the Knicks were always almost good enough. They were very Red Sox-like at the time. They were almost good enough to win. So I think if they won, I know they had the Liberty win last year. I know the soccer team that I couldn't tell you their name if you paid, offered me $100,000. But a Knicks championship would be the biggest, certainly for the biggest sports story in generations, I think, in at least a
Yeah,
generation.
the only other one I would say would be the Giants beating the Patriots, the undefeated Patriots in the Super
Fair
Bowl.
enough.
That was a good one, but it's pretty close if the Knicks were to win. But anyhow,
Anyway, let's know that go to Locked On Knicks to go here for some of that. The Subway Series. This is an interesting Subway Series because the Mets are actually a lot better than I thought they were going to be. Their pitching is so much better than I thought it was going to be. I thought their pitching was going to be their Achilles heel, and despite the fact that you've had two gigantic Jenga pieces removed from the Yankees, that is Garrett Cole out for the year, one of the legitimate aces and one of the best free agent signings the Yankees have done in a long time. Take him out, and Juan Soto being removed for greener pastures in another borough. And the Yankees are the only, I'm not going to, how do I phrase this? The only team in the AL East not underachieving right now. Every other American, like especially Baltimore, whose manager I think should be, Hyde should be updating his LinkedIn page at this point. But the Yankees, give them credit. And this is coming from me. Give them credit. The Max Fried signing has been phenomenal. And Judge is playing like I don't have Soto anymore. No problem. I mean, he is just showing that he is the MVP until proven otherwise.
Yes.
Tell me, as someone who's been
season.
Okay. Same with Bonds. You've forgotten more about the Yankees than I'll ever know, and most people will ever know. Tell me your thoughts on, as we're approaching the 1/3 mark of the season, what to make of this team that has some players who are not playing up to their potential, but it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's strange because remember Yankees got a new closer this year, and he is the guy who they literally changed the hair code, the stupid 50-year hair code for, and then he gets bit the bit for the first month and a half, and then he lost his job a couple weeks ago. So.
Maybe they should have shaved.
A lot of Yankee fans are like, he should have to shave. Yeah, exactly. So, but it's going to be. I mean, this is the first time in a while that the Subway Series has really, really been buzzworthy, and to have Soto come. I mean, the Yankees are doing well. The Mets are doing great. And have Soto come in and everything. It's just, the Yankees are surviving without him, but there's a lot of bitterness in the Bronx.
Okay,
I don't know how much.
Let's address that. Let's address that because, it's not like. I know there was some silly bitterness when Robbie Cano left and left for Seattle after the 2013 season. I thought that was a little silly because the Yankees have had a history of swiping players. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. Hell, we're celebrating CC Sabathia this year in the Hall of Fame, who was not a homegrown Yankee in the house that Ruth built. He played for a team before the Yankees. I can't remember which one.
Yeah.
But Mike Mussina, Reggie Jackson, all these ones who were, Roger Maris, who were all swept from other teams. But at least Robbie Cano was a homegrown Yankee and a World Series champion, was there for about 7 or 8 years or something like that. Soto was a Yankee as long as Jack Clark was a Yankee. Yeah, one season.
Yeah, well, he was a Yankee as long as Aaron Boone was a Yankee, and he also, the two of them have something in common: the extra inning homer to get the Yankees to the World Series. And now I understand, obviously, it was different stakes in 2003, but it's given Aaron Boone the job for life as Yankee manager, no matter what he does. And meanwhile, Soto, it's like, I'm sorry, without Soto, they would not have made the World Series.
No,
and
absolutely not.
If you're going to be mad at anybody, and I'm sorry, as a Yankee fan, but this is the 50th anniversary of Catfish Hunter, the very first free agent and the very first person taking more money. And we've had 50 years of our team of how many players have we gotten because the Yankees paid them more? And if you think they're all greedy, was Reggie Jackson greedy? And let's not forget, it's just like I didn't see Aaron Judge take a pay cut to re-sign
No.
or Derek Jeter or anything else. I mean, it's a business, and they you can't. I mean, the Yankees played within the rules on these things and all, and I always appreciated that they'd go the extra mile. But at the same time, you can't complain that, oh, well, gee, Soto's greedy. And the way people carry on, it really has done something. Even you wouldn't know that the Yankees are in first place from the way so many of the fans act. I saw somebody today who went and found a video of Soto celebrating a home run with Judge versus with the Mets, and like, look how much happier he was as a Yankee. It's like, this is like a girl who gets dumped, and she's looking like, oh gee, look at him with the new girlfriend. Oh no, we were much happier or something. Are you kidding me?
The team that the fan base that would have a gripe would be Washington, because he came up with the Nationals.
Yeah.
And they offered him the sun, the moon, and the stars when he was about 21 or 22 years old. And he said, no, I think I can make more. And they, to the Nationals' credit, they actually pulled off a decent trade. They got a bunch of good players back from San Diego, including the kid James Wood, who is playing very well, and Mackenzie Gore, who's a solid pitcher. So they got players from that. And then the Padres got to an NLCS, but it was like, we're not going to sign them. So they made a deal. They got a bunch of players, including Michael King, who is fit like a glove in San Diego. By the way, the Yankees also got Trent Grisham out of that trade. And Trent Grisham has been a godsend for the Yankees this year.
Yes, he has, and I've heard Yankee fans say, instead of like the chant, they want to do some chant like we've got Grisham, and I mean, that's kind of cute, but I mean, come on, let's see at the end of the season who's got the last laugh. But the thing is with Soto that, like, I will never begrudge him for taking the money, and I thought all along this would happen. I did not think he was going to be a Yankee, because I felt like if it were going to happen, if that was going to be the thing, he would have signed right after the season or pretty early on. And one of the warning signs was when Aaron Judge was asked, like, oh, have you tried to woo him or anything? And he's like, well, no, I gave him space. He could, he knows what it's about here. And as it turns out, Hal Steinbrenner never approached Soto the entire season to talk to him and try to get him, because, well, I want to give him some space. Well, you kidding? You have a whole year of this guy, and you don't like make a relationship with him. And guess what Steve Cohen did? He made a relationship with him, had him over to his home, had the food he likes, had the video, even had the the presentation showing what it would be like to Juan Soto statue. And I know Soto took more money, but that personal touch means something.
Well, but the Yankees also did offer him a lot. It's not like they just let him walk.
Well, fair enough. Fair enough. The real original sin here is the beginning. I mean, I feel like if anybody's going to boo, you boo Hal for this. You also boo Cashman, because I feel like all this stuff where the Yankees were so desperate to get Soto, when they had it begins with the whole, why didn't they sign Bryce Harper? Why didn't they even talk to him? And I looked up the quote tonight where from years back, why they never even talked to Bryce Harper. And Brian Cashman said, well, we have 6 outfielders and there's not enough room for him. And one of them was Ellsbury, and well, Ellsbury will be healthy. And then there's Clint Frazier was going to be healthy too. And so you don't have room for, so I mean, and to be years without a great lefty slugger. I mean, this was the right move, but they should have filled that slot years ago.
I will give them, and here, look, you and I have trashed Brian Cashman for over a decade together. It's one of the things we've bonded over the years.
Yes.
But I will give them credit that they made a phenomenal move, which is the Max Fried signing. And Fried, at least as we're roughly almost a third of the way through the season, has been everything I mean, he leads the league in innings pitched. He leads the league in ERA. He leads the league in ERA plus. I don't really pay much attention to the win-loss record, but the fact that he's 6-0 at least shows that he's not getting bombed. He's only got up 7 earned runs this entire season. and he
Wow.
has a 52 strikeout to 13 walk, that 52 strikes and 13 walks. He has been, it turned out to be fortuitous because if they had a healthy Garrett Cole and a Max Fried,
Mm,
then this would be, a runaway train. But if they didn't have Max Fried, this would be really, really rotten. Rodon has pitched all right. Um, uh, Stroman has been a disaster. I think they DFA'd Carlos Carrasco, if I'm not mistaken.
yes.
Um, but Fried has been the ace, and that's a big reason why the Yankees are on top right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And but as for this weekend, there's been a big debate in Yankee land of what to do about with Soto's first at bat. To me, I go back to when Matsui left. And
Mhm.
he was World Series MVP. And the first at bat, they cheered for him and all. I think they had a video and stuff. And now I know there was a longer time and everything. But then after that, it's like you could boo or not boo. Yeah, but show some appreciation the first at bat.
Yeah.
I just this stuff with Soto. I mean, he's not the bad guy. He doesn't. If you want to boo him, fine. But I just feel like the indifference would be more of a statement. If after it just like whatever. I mean, this is going to be and then when Yankee fans are showing up at Citi Field to boo Soto, which has happened repeatedly, it's like, come on.
No, that's Bush League. I'm never going to tell someone to not, as long as you boo,
Mhm.
you know, this is an odd thing. You boo respectfully.
Yeah.
You don't do like what happened to poor Jared Duran in Cleveland. You don't pull that
Yes.
sort of nonsense.
Yes.
Boo for what they're doing on the field. And if they're saying I wanted you to stay, boo and everything like that. But after the first at bat, move on. He was a Mel Hall was a Yankee longer than he was. I'm trying to think of more. Butch Waniger was Kevin Youkilis was about as long. Actually, Mel Hall played like 3 or 4 years with the Yankees, if I'm not mistaken. And turns out he had like exotic pets in his house in Fairfield, Connecticut. So that's something you can share with your loved one. Lisa Swan, before we let you go, give me one prediction for what's going to happen in the Subway Series over the weekend.
I think Soto's gonna have a great series, and I could be wrong, but I just think that's the sort of thing that's gonna motivate him. He already said in the paper today it's gonna be 50,000 against one, so we
Uh,
shall
uh,
see.
where can people still follow you? Where are you? Where can people follow you, Lisa Swan?
I'm not really blogging anymore, and I'm for Subway Squawkers. I guess they can look for me on Twitter at
Mhm.
Subway Squawkers. I'm still there, but
Yep.
I've been snarking on some of the stuff going on in Yankee Land. But yeah, they could check me out there.
On the old Sully Baseball podcast, no guest was on more frequently. It was sometimes it was like in case of emergency break glass, and in came Lisa Swan for another Yankee Red Sox conversation and it was most of the time was us talking about why does Brian Cashman still have a job, and he still has a job.
Yeah,
But the Subway Series is going to lead us to the trivia question, and the trivia question is this: in the first ever regular season Subway Series back in 1997, Dave Malicki famously threw a complete game shutout to win the game. Here's a trivia question, and we'll reveal the answer tomorrow. In the first inning of the first game of the first regular season Subway Series, what New York Met stole home? There was a steal of home by a Met in the first Subway Series game in the first inning before the Yankees even came to bat. That's the trivia question. Put the answer right down here on YouTube. And follow us at Lockdown MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully, but Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram and here on YouTube. On behalf of old friend Lisa Swan making a cameo appearance at the final segment, this has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.